Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming. I call to order the Lynchburg Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 13th, 2016. I want to thank Mark for running the meeting last go around. Appreciate that. The first order of business is the approval of the June 8th, 2016 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to these minutes? We have a motion to approve. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. The next order of business is a public hearing. I have a conflict of interest since my wife works for Centra, so I will be recusing myself from this particular item, and Mark is going to take over for us here.
Okay. Go take
Thank
your
you.
seat. Okay, the next order of business is a petition.
Can I weigh in just?
Certainly.
My wife works for Central also. Maybe I should. I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
I should
Yeah, the
step
city
out.
attorney said, regardless of where
Okay.
she is, if she's an employee, then, is this still good?
You work for something?
No, I do not, but do we have a quorum? We're now down to 3.
You do still
We
have.
do.
Okay.
We do? Okay. Don't have a problem then. Just. Does my wife have? No. Okay, the next order of business is petition of Centra Health LLC for a conditional use permit to use existing home and property at 1343 Oak Lane and 1512 Fairway Drive as a group home for up to 4 pregnant and postpartum women with infants in an R2 low-medium density residential district. Will someone from the city like to present this plan to us?
Yes, sir, and in full disclosure, my son works for Centra Health, but I can guarantee you I get no financial benefit from it. So, members of Planning Commission, this is a conditional use permit request for the use of an existing structure located at 1343 Oak Lane, and the remaining property is located at 1512 Fairway Place. If approved, the conditional use permit would allow a group home for up to 4 pregnant or postpartum mothers and their infants in the existing structure. There would be no major exterior changes to the property. It's recommended for institutional uses on the city's future land use map. The facility would be supervised 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Parking would be 2 spaces within the existing driveway, and also 2 spaces would be reserved in the existing Centra parking area across Oak Lane. As you can see on the submitted concept plan as required by the zoning ordinance, there would be a small sidewalk extension to the south of the driveway. We have not heard of any neighborhood opposition, and planning staff does feel that this would fit well into an otherwise institutional area and do recommend its approval.
Thank you. Who is here to speak on behalf of this petition? Thank you. If you would please come forward, state your name and sign in. We'll be happy to hear from you.
I apologize, I don't have a sign-in sheet, but if you want to give me your name and everything for the minutes, I will.
I can put a piece of paper there for you.
That would be awesome, Mark, thank you. I don't know how I forgot that, thank you so much.
You got pens, or do we? Well, you won't have a pen.
It's called, Tom says it's called old age. Thank you.
could be as old as you.
Thank you, sir. Oh. Thanks.
So my name is Kim Price, and I am the Director of Women and Children's Services for Centra Health. And basically what has happened is, and I'm sure you've seen it on the news, we've just had a increase in our number of babies born with substance abuse issues. And I guess about this time last year, we started really recognizing almost a tripling in moms that were coming in and delivering babies that had a substance abuse issue. So I'm so proud of this community. We have all come together and as a community come together as a team to address the issue. We have people from the police department that are coming. We have substance abuse people are coming. We have treatment people that are coming to our monthly meetings to really talk about what our needs are and how we can best address them. And as a part of that, this house has kind of become a concept that grew out of this just to meet a need that some of these ladies need a place to go and just kind of get away from their home life and have a chance to really turn their lives around and be with their babies. We've seen some models around the country that have done this, so we're very excited. We think this can really work in this community and make a difference.
Thank you.
Any questions that I can?
Matter of fact, I do not. Do you have any questions?
I was just curious with the renovations, it said that right now it has 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. Will the renovations be to make a 4th bedroom, or how will that work?
One of those bedrooms is huge, like almost the size of this room, so we anticipate we can kind of partition and make it another bedroom without having to do a lot of additional construction.
Gotcha. And then for the 24 supervision, will someone be living in with them, or will
Yes.
be?
Yes, we will have a house supervisor, if you will, that'll be there 24/7 through, it's a peer support program through Roads to Recovery. We'll be doing the actual management of that piece of it.
Okay. So since there are 2 lots that are being considered, one is where they'll be living, what will I didn't understand the second lot's use.
That's a very good question. The zoning ordinance has development standards for group homes.
Okay.
And it has to be a certain size, and there's also recreation areas. And if you see on the plan, a portion of that lot will be enclosed for a fenced-in recreation area for the use by the mothers and children.
Okay.
So,
Do we have anyone else to speak on behalf of this petition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this position? Well, okay, at this point, Ms. Price, you can go back, take a seat there. At this point, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, are there any questions that we have for the planning staff?
I've got a couple of questions for Ms. Price, actually, just trying to.
Oh, well, Ms. Price, if you come back up, please.
How are the women selected to come? How are they forced to come? Are they invited to come?
They're invited to come. So what happens is, when a patient is identified that has this issue, they actually go into a referral process. And so that referral process includes being vetted by our wonderful perinatal navigator who's sitting back here with me, Shannon. And so she and Dr. Taylor, who is our neonatologist, and Andrea Stutzman, our pain doctor, kind of intercollaboratively decide who would be appropriate for the house.
They're all there because they want to be there.
Yes.
And can their children come with them then? Their young-
We put in the petition that there might be the need for that, but we don't anticipate there being a ton of kids there. There should be mom and a baby. If there was a unique situation where we needed one, we put in the petition that we could have, I believe, up to 9 in the house,
Okay.
but no more than that.
And how long typically will a woman stay?
We believe, based on what we've seen at other similar facilities, around 9 months.
And how many postpartum, how many prepartum?
Oh, that's the whole, from kind of identification through delivery and then kind of through the recovery stage,
So,
about 9 months.
okay.
I know that's the,
So it might be 3 months postpartum.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? Tom, she mentioned 9 infants, and this is for 9 children there. So we're talking 4 females and infants. Are we comfortable with that number?
yes, but I do not believe we put the number 9 in the report to give them a little bit of flexibility on the amount of, if there was a mother that had another younger child,
Okay.
Central would be able to dictate that based on their needs.
The reason I asked is because I had not seen the number 9.
That is
And I just
correct.
want to make sure that we had down officially on the record that we got that covered. I'm in favor of this, and I think it's a wonderful need for the community. And other than that, I have no questions. I read through this, and I've looked at it thoroughly, and so I have no questions. So if we have no questions at this point, can we have a motion? Well, we have to have a motion first, and the motion would be based on the preceding findings of fact plan, that we make a motion that we recommend to City Council approval of the petition of Centra Health to allow the use of an existing structure and property at 1343 Oak Lane and 1512 Fairway Place as a group home for up to 4 pregnant or postpartum women and infants, subject to the conditions listed on this petition. So do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All saying aye? All approved? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations. And if we can have the, are they out back?
I don't know if they're just
Left the
hanging out in the
building.
hallway or if they went to the canteen.
You're on. So at this time, we will invite the chair back and the other commissioner, and we'll continue on with the
Thank you.
meeting. So we have approved the, great, thanks. So the next thing up is the memo to the memo on the zoning ordinance corrections. So I'll let you
All
deal
right,
with
and we'll
that.
just turn that right over to Rachel. I mean, sorry, Ann. Looking right at you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of Planning Commission. So thankfully, the zoning ordinance was adopted after many, many years last February. But since then, over the past few months, staff has been working with it, and we've just kind of developed a running list as we've kind of come across areas where there's a little glitch, where the wording might be a little off, and it says one thing here and one thing here, or a specific situation has come up, and we just need something. It would be really helpful to have the zoning ordinance just clarified a little bit further. So you should have gotten the list in the memo that was sent out last week, but I will just go ahead and run through each of the items on the list, make sure you guys fully understand what it is. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, just stop me, and we'll kind of talk about it and try and make sure that it's clear what we're proposing to change. At this point, we don't really know exactly how everything will change. We just need you guys to initiate the actual process of changing it. So the first one is to clarify that in B3 districts that parking can be to the side and the rear of buildings when the building is set on the property line. Otherwise, a 20-foot setback will apply. So under the previous zoning ordinance, there was a 20-foot setback for all buildings and parking. With the zoning ordinance update, we removed that 20-foot setback for buildings, kind of as an incentive for projects to comply with the comprehensive plan's goals for more mixed use, more walkable development. So we've kind of looked at this, and we think that, you know, if they're going to do that, if they're going to pull their building up to the street, then it would also be reasonable that they could have their parking to the side or the rear of the building within that 20 feet. Applying that 20-foot setback is not necessary in those cases. All right, second, clarify the number of business vehicles permitted for home occupations. This one came up for our zoning administrator. If there's a contractor who runs his business out of his home, how many business vehicles are they allowed to park on their lot? Can they have 10? That might be excessive. So it'd be nice to have a standard kind of set for that, and also identify a location on site. You know, maybe it should be behind the front building line and not all parked in the front driveway.
Have you got a number in mind?
We were thinking maybe one vehicle and one trailer. We will draft the ordinance and let you guys kind of debate it. If you guys are feeling like it should be more, let us know. Do you have any opinions?
No, I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah, I think the thing to point out is Ann portrayed this as changes. It's really clarifications on the ordinance. We will definitely go back and make some recommendations. Obviously, there'll be a full public hearing process to have it vetted by the public. But right now, we don't have any preconceived notions of what the numbers would be.
This was something that it just has never been specified. To clarify that lot and width requirements are for both the frontage line and the setback line on lots. When we went from text in the previous ordinance to this graphic in the new ordinance, it kind of made it look like that dimension E is only for where the setback is on the lot, not at the frontage. So that can kind of lead you to have some odd shaped lots in the city. Include a reduction in setbacks required for residential clusters. So with the new zoning ordinance, we adopted a development pattern for having smaller lots in order to preserve more open space. And we did include a reduction in the overall lot size, but we didn't reduce the setbacks to go with it. So if you are able to reduce your lot, but you still have to have a 15-foot setback on either side, you end up with a lot that's not really all that buildable, kind of realistically. So we want to make sure that, that it's possible for people to actually implement these residential clusters. Include additional material options for dumpster enclosures other than just masonry. This one we're not exactly sure where the requirement for masonry came from, but we do want to add back in that wood and vinyl enclosures would probably also be acceptable, as well as maybe other materials. Apply the 40-foot scenic corridor setback to the limited access highways that are in the scenic corridor. So when the new zoning ordinance got to city council, they eliminated the city-wide requirement for setbacks from limited access highways. It had been 50 feet from all limited access highways. And so when that got removed, that also removed any setbacks in the scenic corridor. And there's a standard in the scenic corridor that's for 40 feet throughout the entire district, so on any road. So it kind of alters the character of the scenic corridor if all of a sudden you can build right up to the property line along limited access highways, but you have to have a 40-foot setback everywhere else.
You really can build right up to them.
Amend density and lot size requirements for the R3 and R4 districts to make them consistent. So we realized that you can actually have a smaller lot in an R3 district if you're building a single-family house than you can in an R4. For some reason, it's 6,000 in R4 and 4,000 in R3. So we're going to look at that and then also the density requirements there, just to kind of make them consistent and make them make sense. Revise temporary outdoor promotional attraction standards to allow them in mixed-use areas. So there's a requirement in the ordinance that you must be 150 feet away from any lot line that has a dwelling, and that doesn't specify that it's a dwelling, a single-family house, or whether it's an apartment over a store. And we think those should probably be treated differently so that you can have these temporary events in our traditional neighborhood developments, or if we do get some more mixed use in our business districts, it would probably make sense to be able to allow those in those more dense, more urban areas of the city.
What would be an example of that attraction?
Like a carnival, or is it also like a car?
Say like out in Windhurst, they used to have something similar to Friday Cheers in the parking lot.
I remember
What
those.
is the,
Well, they would no longer be able to do that in a parking lot now because it would be adjacent to, they'd have to be 150 feet away from a townhome or an apartment complex.
so this isn't a sign advertising it, it is the thing itself.
Correct.
Correct. It's the actual event.
Oh.
So like churches and residential neighborhoods can have big outdoor activities,
Well, I think
welcome
those
home
would be
activities.
commercial in nature, those would be a big nonprofit event. I think this is more the big sales events.
Okay.
Verify state code requirements for correcting zoning zoning violations and amend to make time periods consistent and easy to follow. So it's been a little confusing. Sometimes it's 15 days you get to fix your zoning ordinance violation, and other times it's 30 days, and state code says one thing, and we've just kind of noticed that we need to double check this. and make sure it's right, and also make sure it's easy for citizens to understand and follow. Include a requirement for the calls for the meets and bounds to be illustrated on the plan per current policy. This is something we ask for just routinely when something comes through for a conditional use permit or actually a rezoning, not a conditional use permit, that they actually do the dimensions out on the plan. For some reason, this was left off the list of requirements for concept plan submittals. Clarify that enclosures for large farm animals that are required to be set back 200 feet does not include fences. If you read this section, it says all enclosures must be set back 200 feet. The question came up, well, is a fence an enclosure? It could be, depending on the way you're reading it, but that was not the intent. The intent is for the actual barn to have to be set back 200 feet. Clarify that mixed-use development with only 1 or 2 units are also permitted in business districts, as was the intent when we changed the ordinance. So I think this came up because of the LBCS codes that we adopted, which for the new members of Planning Commission, you might not know what LBCS, land-based classification system.
Yes.
And it's a kind of a universal list that assigns a number to each type of land use. Well, the problem is it also doesn't allow for exactly mixed use situations per se. So the way the ordinance reads is you can only have 3 or more units in the mixed use scenario. You can't have just 1 or 2. And so this would kind of prevent mixed use on the really small lots. So we want to revise it to make sure that you can have just 1 apartment over a store or 2. Revise district use standards in B1, B3, and B5 to allow duplexes and other residential uses permitted by conditional use permit to be constructed without a mixed use component because they are only permitted by CUP in business districts. This one is the one that gets a little hairy. Standalone residential is not really permitted in residential districts. In business districts, excuse me. And so there's a special requirement that if you're going to do residential as part of a mixed-use development, then it can't be on the ground floor, and if it is, you need to be taking the access from a side street. However, there's also a conditional use permit process for duplexes, and it wouldn't make sense to be allowed to do a duplex and then be required to have mixed use and access only from a side street. It kind of makes that not an option in a lot of scenarios. Does that make sense?
No.
That one's tough. So there's a district standard right now that prohibits ground floor residential other than single family houses. And so unless they get that mixed use component. So if you have a duplex that gets a CUP, then we have this other requirement that comes on and says, oh, now you have to also do mixed use and you can only have access from the side street.
The point is, if you go to do standalone, the ordinance is conflicting itself. So if you go and get a conditional use permit to do standalone residential, it's conflicting now in that it would also require you to do mixed use. So it just doesn't make sense. So we're proposing to clarify that. I think the intent was, when we adopted this, was to just, if you were going to do a mixed-use development, you could have residential by right. You could have a by right mixed-use development as long as the residential was on the side street, right? If you come in and get a conditional use permit to do standalone residential, that negates the need to do mixed use. So that's what we're clarifying.
And at that point, it would be vetted by Planning Commission and City Council on its own as to whether a standalone residential is okay.
Because the entire point is to not use our commercial districts up for just straight residential uses.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Revise the ordinance to allow attached residential of all types in the B4 district. This was permitted in the old ordinance, in the previous ordinance, and I think it was another one of those changes with the LBCS code. This was kind of just inadvertently taken out So you couldn't do a row house if you had a really tiny lot in downtown right now. So we want to make sure we add that back in, because that was not our intent. Revise the B5 district authorized uses to allow residential as part of mixed-use development, as was the intent when we changed the ordinance. The wording in the B1 and the B3 is there to allow by right mixed use in those districts, and it was supposed to also be in the B5 district. For some reason, it was left off. But standalone residential would still require a conditional use permit. Revise this section to allow mobile retailers in addition to mobile food trucks, but require that they follow the same standards as food trucks. This is something we're gonna have to look at, but we have had a request for a mobile retail truck. And so right now it's just not permitted, so we're gonna look at the food truck ordinance and see if it could be applied to mobile retailers as well to permit that. Clarify the quantity requirement from the previous ordinance requiring storm water from excess parking areas in large-scale retail developments to infiltrate. Right now, there's a question as to, okay, well, what year storm? There's an amount of of water that comes with a 1-year storm, a 5-year storm, a 10-year storm, so it was unclear exactly how much water they're required to infiltrate. So we would want to revise this to clarify and have it align with state stormwater requirements and city requirements. Clarifying how zoning is applied during right-of-way vacations. This came up during the Whitehall Road right-of-way vacation, and it was just a little unclear exactly what district would apply when you vacated that right-of-way. It didn't really matter in that scenario because we ended up rezoning it to change whatever it was, but if you're just purely vacating the right-of-way, we just want to clarify that the right-of-way would take on the zoning of the adjacent districts, and then the boundary line would run through the center of the old right-of-way. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That last one, if you vacate, say, an alley or whatever, vacate something, then somebody is getting it. Or if you vacate it, does it go half to this property owner and half to that
Yes.
one?
Yep.
So that's why you would put the line down the middle.
So you put the line down the middle, and it would adopt the districts from the adjacent parcels.
Okay. All right.
But you're gonna come back to us with all proposed wordings and stuff there?
Right, so right now, we're just asking for you to initiate these changes, and then we'll come back with recommendations. And we'll hold a public hearing.
Okay, because I can see right now on the number of vehicles permitted for home occupations. So I can see we're gonna have a lot of public things, because there's a lot of ways it could be, we're talking about advertising in a residential thing, because a vehicle is in itself a sign. So it'll be interesting to see what the proposals are. So what do we need to do?
So there was a resolution included as part of the memorandum. We're asking you to consider adopting that resolution, which would allow staff to move forward with drafting changes and advertising these changes or clarifications for public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, given the scope of this revision, it's completely understandable that you have to go and do some pretty much housekeeping.
Absolutely.
And I'm actually impressed it's this short of a list.
Well, this isn't the only list.
I'm sure.
We're trying to bring them to you in manageable
Right.
pieces.
Mhm.
But, yeah.
Do we need to make a motion that we adopt this?
Yeah, I mean, here, I've got the full resolution, it's an entire page.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to read it, but yeah, I guess just a motion, is there a motion to adopt this?
I'd like to make a motion, we adopt this resolution and allow the van staff to move forward, do what needs to be done.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the resolution has been adopted. So we look forward to hearing more about these clarifications and how we can get the process started on that. And I know, just so the new members know, when we worked on this before, sometimes we worked on this stuff at the end of a short planning commission meeting, sometimes we had workshops on a different date to allow us just to vote the entire thing, the entire time to those, and we'll just see how that plays out. Any other items? Or, yeah,
I thought I would like, we're doing the certified planning commission program, and a couple of things that have jumped out at me. One was, there are some things that I feel like we might be a little bit in the dark, and I would wonder if it's possible for us as a group, maybe on some of our down days, to be able to get together and kind of discuss some of the ways that we think, and some of the also some of the strategies of some people who are involved in administration in the city. Maybe they could come and speak to us, and I didn't know if that would be something possible.
Yeah, I think what I was going to recommend is that the planning commission consider doing a retreat. We'll go away from City Hall. It might be half a day, it could be a full day. We could set it up however you like. But there's some things that staff also wants to talk with you about. Namely, we want to talk with you about the reports and whether or not the information in these reports are useful to you. Is there something that we spend a lot of time on that you really don't use and it's not relevant? Is there something that's missing that you'd like to have? But we'd also like to kind of know where the commission would like to move on from here. We've also got the annual report that's going to be coming to you. That might be a good time to talk about that, what we've accomplished over the past year, where the commission would like to be going in the next year or so. So, if that's something that the commission is, would find that would be useful, I'll ask Robin to contact you, maybe get some dates, and we'll set up a place, and maybe we can, if you have ideas of what you'd like to have on the agenda, who you may like to have come speak to you, so on and so forth, we'd be happy to set that up.
Should we wait until Jan gets back?
When is he coming?
End of August.
End of August.
and when do you guys finish the training?
End of August.
So it might be good just let all that
Mhm.
wrap up.
I think that's.
So start shooting for September, maybe.
Okay.
Summer travels are over, maybe by then.
Would that be acceptable, Mr. Rogers? Or-
That would be great.
Okay. I didn't want to, if that's fine with you,
Mhm.
wait
Yeah,
till
that's great.
September.
I think that's a terrific idea. We haven't done anything like that in a while.
Not
So-
since we've been on. I wanted to do that, I mean, I would have liked to have done that when I was first on it, because I was so confused. Still am.
Well, good.
Join the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, we'll just look forward to that happening at some
Yes.
point this fall then. Great. Any other items to bring up? All right, well, thank you all very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All right.